peek through the tiny hole in my door, and I saw it was still there. The skin that had been ripped off someone's body shone in the weak light of the bulb that hung from the ceiling. It knew I was looking, and it came closer until all I could see was his face. The twisted faces of my neighbors, who used to live next door, looked at me and smiled. It jerked back suddenly, and I saw it again. It was like two people had been smashed together. The smaller one stuck to the bigger one's chest, like a baby monkey and its mom, but wrong. So wrong. I could see the red and white of its muscles, the blue of its veins, and the loose bits of skin that dangled from it. It ran away into the shadows of the hall, but I didn't fall for it. It was trying to trick me into coming out, and I didn't want to know what it would do to me. Please, I need your help. I'm stuck on the 4th floor of Rochester Heights, in room 405, a rundown building in East Oakland. Something terrible happened here just a few hours ago, around midnight. I don't know if it was an attack or a curse, but something changed everything. I can't get out, and my room is the only place where I'm safe. But for how long? I don't know when it will break in. I have to tell you what happened before this. Maybe you can help me. It all began with that horrible thing. Not a sex thing. No, it was a statue. It was 4 a.m., and I was going to do some laundry before going to bed, and there it was, lying in the middle of the laundry room, covered in blood. I didn't know what it was, some skinny thing tied to a wooden half-moon. But then I saw it more clearly, and I felt sick. It was a dog, with no skin and no head, nailed to the wood. I called the cops, and they found out that the new cameras that the landlord had put up to raise the rent were fake. They didn't work at all. They didn't care about my bathtub that was sinking into the floor below, so I wasn't surprised. Later, I learned that the dog was Butterball, the poodle that belonged to Mrs. Lawrence. She was an old lady who lived alone. She was so upset, and she wanted them to find out who did it. She might have gotten what she wanted, if things didn't get worse when it got dark. Harold, a guy who never left his apartment on the top floor, was found dead. I'm always up late, so I was awake when they found him. There was no noise, just quiet voices and nervous faces. I like to hang out on the stairs between the 4th and 3rd floor because no one else goes there, and there's a small window where I can smoke. I was trying to get a signal this time because my internet was down and my phone wasn't working either. That's when I heard them coming down the stairs, talking. Elena and Macy from the 4th floor. I could tell by their voice that something was wrong. And the time, 2 a.m. No one else was up this late, except me. I listened carefully. He was twisted like a pretzel, and there was blood and guts everywhere. Tony thinks he's been like that since they found that old lady's dog in the laundry room. He tried to call the cops, but his phone didn't work. Elena was talking quietly to Macy. So, who was it? That weirdo Harold from the 2nd floor. The one that caught her punched for bothering his girlfriend. What's her name? John. It's Joanna. Don't be rude. This is serious. What did Tony do with the body? Sorry, I just think she's boring and ugly. Carter could do better, and nothing yet. He told the manager, and he tried to call the cops too, but nothing. He wants to get rid of the body as soon as he can, so he went to the police station himself. But it's been 2 hours, and he hasn't texted me at all. I'm getting scared. Should we go look for him? No, that would be too much. We're not even a couple, just having fun. But hey, you know the Donut Royal is always open. We can get some and meet Tony on the way, Elena said, and they started to go down the stairs. I was stuck, and I couldn't get away in time. The 2 women didn't even look at me as they walked by. I knew 3 things then. That Elena was sleeping with our handyman. That I was either invisible or hated enough to be invisible. And that Harold was dead. I didn't know it then, but I would find out later that night that this was only the start of a nightmare. I finished my cigarette and went back upstairs, not knowing that anything was wrong. I should have looked around more when I was walking, because I'm sure by then it had already begun. I barely noticed that every light was darker. Not a lot, but enough to see it. I went back to my room, locked the door, and tried to get my laptop to go online again. The only things that worked were 2 random Reddit pages I had already opened before the internet went down. I gave up after about 45 minutes and put my ear to the wall next door. I know it's strange, but sometimes I like to hear what my neighbors, Joanna and Carter, were doing. But now they were silent, except for the normal sounds and breathing of sleeping. I wondered if they knew Harold was dead, and I wondered how they would feel when they learned. I wasn't there when he and Carter had a fight, but I'd heard about it. Macy and Elena liked to chat above where I smoked. I think Harold saw them like I did, and the poor guy, stuck in his own fantasy, went after Carter. Everyone knew he liked Joanna, and she was too nice or sorry to ever be firm with him. So, he thought she liked him back, and it ended with him getting beaten up, and the people here were happy about it. Poor Harold, in his 40s and living with his old mom because he was too crazy to go anywhere else. Mary, I think her name was. And then I felt bad. Did she know her son was dead? And where was she? I used to be scared of becoming like him, but that was before tonight. I couldn't sleep, and I was annoyed, and I wanted another cigarette, so I went for a smoke. I wondered why no one was making a fuss about his death, or why they were hiding it. I didn't think about it until then. But if he was dead, and he died in such a horrible way, who did it? And were they still here? I felt cold sweat on my face at that, and I wanted to go back to my room. After 2 more steps, I decided to do that, but something else was wrong. The hall was darker now, a lot more than before, and the air was cold in a way I can't explain. It felt like it was going through my skin and bones. I felt dizzy as the feeling of something wrong got stronger. I didn't know what it was at first, but as I kept walking, I saw it. The hole was longer than it should be. I stopped, not understanding that, and I looked around more. The ceiling was higher too, by a few feet. My mouth was dry, and I tried to swallow, but nothing made me feel normal. I made myself walk back to my room, and I was halfway there when I felt scared again. At the end of the hall, from the 5th floor, someone was coming down the stairs. I should have gone to them and asked or told them what was going on, but something inside me knew it was wrong in every way a living thing could be. Even the stairs to the top floor looked wrong, like they didn't belong here. I had to get past this thing if I wanted to get to my room. So, I turned around and tried to run as quietly and fast as I could down the hall, but I was afraid it would see me. A closet to my right that was always open was where I hid, and I tried to get in as quietly as I could. The closet had an old apartment door, so it had a hole for me to look out of. Minutes went by very slowly, but it did show up. From the side it came. It had a fancy cloth on, and it moved like it was dancing in the air. When I looked down, I saw it was flying, with no legs. From its hood, a weird blinking light shone in the dark hall. When it was at my level, and right in front of me, I saw part of its face, and I held my breath to not make a sound. Its face was like TV noise, flashing in black and white. I shut my eyes then, afraid it would look at me, and I'd see it clearly. I was still and quiet, waiting for it to open the door, and I thought about all the other weird things I'd heard lately. Tony had seen a lot of dead animals around the building in the last few days. He didn't say how they looked, and I wondered if they were like Butterball, with no skin and on a cross. I waited until my body hurt, and I got brave enough to look through the hole again. The hall was empty, and I slowly opened the door and got out. Me, Macy, Elena, Carter, and Joanna were the only ones on this floor. I went to their door and stopped myself when I was going to knock. I waited for a moment before I tried the door. I made a face as it made a noise, and I went in, trying to close the door quietly. I said their names in a low voice, but as I looked at their living room, I heard a sound from the other room. I went across the apartment slowly and looked through the gap in the door. I didn't know who they were at first. I thought it was some blankets, but as they moved and breathed hard, I realized what it was, and I made a noise. It made the head, or heads, look at me, and I knew what it was. Carter and Joanna had been stuck together. They were sleeping when it happened, because their body, hips, and legs were one. Her head was on his chest and looking at me with big, open eyes. I thought they had no skin at first, but then I saw that the skin had fallen off them. It, got up on 4 legs, if you can call them that, and both their heads made a sound. The mouths smiled at me as it came towards me, and I woke up. We both ran at the same time, but it was slow because of how it looked. But it was still too close to me as I ran to the hall and to my room. I was glad I didn't lock my door as I opened it and shut it fast. And just in time, I locked it. He tried the door a few times before it tapped and then hit it hard, and then nothing. Now, it's just there for me. But what I'm most afraid of is that whatever you did to them will come back, drawn by it, and do the same to me. It's been hours, but the sun hasn't come up. I tried to sleep in the tub. I didn't like how close my bed was to Joanne's and Carter's. But when I got in, I remembered that the tub was broken and half in the floor. So I went back to the living room and saw my laptop still there with this page open. If anyone can help or has any ideas, tell me now. I don't know how long I have left. Just now I looked out of my window and saw only darkness. But what really scares me is the few times it changes. Sometimes lightning flashes in the sky and shows the world outside, a dead desert of sand, lightning cutting through in bright flashes, colored by black and white dust, like TV noise. I haven't slept since I wrote last, and Joanna and Carter are still in the hall, playing with me. I think that whatever changed their bodies also changed their minds. I thought I was done for, but then I remembered the bathtub. I took my bag with some water and my laptop. The landlord and the boss have known about it for 6 months now. Water got into the walls and made the floor rot so much that the bathtub's end was sinking in. When I took a shower, I stayed at the other end, scared that I would make it fall through the floor. Now, I went to that end and got in. It made noises with my weight, but it held, so I started to jump on it, landing as hard as I could until on the 3rd try, the floor broke and I went with it. I landed bad, hitting my side on the edge of the tub, and I couldn't breathe, but I did it. I got rid of some bits of stuff. I got up and got out of the tub. A mom named Naomi lived there with her 2 little kids. I never talked to her, but her son asked me my name once. I knew they often stayed at her boyfriend's house. Elena and Macy's talk told me that, and it was true tonight. The living room and bedroom were empty, and I was happy. I tried to be fast, as my fall was loud, and if anything else was here, it heard. I ran down the hall fast, trying not to look, but there were things you had to see. A part of the brick wall had changed color, black and white, and then back to red. I didn't look more. I had to keep going. Only when I saw some doors with blood on them did I slow down. But I didn't stop. I tried not to think about the people who lived there or what happened to them. But by now, the building should have been full of noise instead of the quiet and sad silence I was in. I got to the stairs and jumped down a whole floor to the 2nd floor. My heart was beating and I felt good. I was running now. This hall was changed, like the one on the 4th floor, but worse. The walls were not only smaller, but they were tilted, changing and turning with every step until the hall was almost twisted. I had to slow down to see where I was, as it was all spinning. The floor under my feet was not bad fake wood anymore, and was instead a smooth rock that felt almost wet. The brick wall was gone, and there was some red and brown cloth over what looked like the same smooth rock. It looked like it was alive, but also like it was cloth. The thick things hanging from it made me think of sea plants, and I was scared to touch them. So I made myself run again past an open door to a room that had a body cut in half and spread out on the floor. the guts between the two parts moving and going up in the air. I closed my eyes and ran past it to the next open door. It was Harold's room, and I was scared to see what happened to him. I thought I was lucky, as the hall got normal again and the next few doors were closed. But as I got to the last doors in the hall, the one on my left opened hard. Hands with no skin from a black hole reached out to get me, and I moved out of the way just in time. But I couldn't stop, and I fell on the cold, wet floor. I tried to get up as the door on my right opened, and Sarah Palmer came out. I knew it was her, even though she looked wrong with no skin and lumps all over. The very fat woman had become one with her scooter. Fat made it hard as it was around the wheels, but still, it moved. The middle of her belly had a big hole, and it shook and made a sound, and it spat out some bad stuff as it threw up a small thing on the floor in front of me. The new kid got up when I did, and followed me as I ran down the hall and to the stairs. The kid thing made of sick and half-eaten stuff was fast. It laughed as it got closer to me. It jumped on me and went to my back, biting hard into my shoulder. I tried to grab it and pull it off. The stuff was soft, and my fingers went into it in a way that made me sick. "Tag, you're it," the thing said in a voice I thought I knew. I was so grossed out that I threw it at the wall with all my strength, and its body broke and splashed on the wall. It made a small, hurt sound as it fell to the floor. As I ran by, it said in a sad whisper that I couldn't forget no matter how hard I tried. "Chris, why?" "I just wanted to play," it said, and I had to stop myself from throwing up as I got to the stairs to the first floor. The only kid who knew my name here was Naomi's son, and they weren't supposed to be here. Not tonight. They always went to their dad's house on weekdays. Did Naomi change her mind tonight of all nights? Or did this start earlier than I thought? I didn't know, and I wouldn't think about it until I was out of this nightmare. The lobby was normal in every way, except for the no lights. But now the dark didn't stop me. The exit was right there, and I ran to it. The glass doors made me stop, not because they were locked, but because of what was outside. A very dark world where nothing could be seen, except for the quick light from lightning, which cut across the sky like whips made of TV noise. Then I saw them, a line of things waiting for me to come out. One was a pale thing with smooth skin and a hole in its chest that dripped black stuff. It had no face. Another was a bunch of angry things that looked like they were made of smaller, moving things. Then there was one that was a big, scary snake thing with eyes as big as human heads. Each eye looked different. The end that I thought was its head had big teeth that were 6 feet long. There were many others, but they looked too different. Too weird to say what they were. What I looked at the most was the blood and clothes on the floor. One of them was Macy's jacket that I knew. One work boot was on its side. One I thought was for a worker. I would not get out. Not here. I tried to make myself feel better by saying whatever was keeping me here was not letting them in, but it didn't help. I crawled under the bad lobby desk and made myself small for what felt like hours. It could have been more for all I know, but nothing mattered then. I was in trouble. Only when I heard some people walking by did I move. Looking out from where I hid, I saw them. The people in robes, 6 of them now. On their shoulders they had a stone thing, and on it, a person. I saw them, their backs to me, walk down the room and to the hall that went to the manager's office. I tried to get out as quiet as I could to see what they were going to do. The people put themselves and the stone thing down, and as light hit it, I saw who it was. The person was bent back into itself until it was a circle. The belly was out to the world, and the back and spine were wrong and twisted. The eyes were empty, but the mouth. Harold was smiling big in a way that was happy. It looked like paint itself, with so many sharp edges and spikes. Every part of it was made to hurt, and the more I looked at it, the more I saw. Hooks and blades, things with hungry, biting mouths. The thing that I noticed the most was how it changed the space around it. Even though it was in a small space as I looked at it, it seemed to make the air bigger so that some part of it that I couldn't see could be felt. This was part of something much bigger, and I felt like some huge hands in the sky were holding this thing out to us, and they were the same thing. I looked away, not wanting to see this monster, this thing of pain, anymore. It spoke in a strange language then, a sound so bad, like a metal nail on my ears and eyes. But I knew what it said, a clear thank you. I went back to where I hid and waited for it to end. Waited for them to go, and they did, going through the hall, past the stairs and to the basement laundry and to the room for everyone. It's been hours since, and they haven't come out. I used the time to try to quietly look around the manager's office, next to a pile of stuff that still had Mr. Roderick's crying face, our landlord, an axe. I took it, knowing that it wouldn't help me if I met those people or the pain thing. What I did know is that Harold had something to do with this and that his room was just a floor up. If there was any way to get out or know, it would be there. If you don't hear from me, I'm dead. I'm sure there's no way anyone from outside this hell can help. Even then, I still ask you to wish me luck. I know I'll need it. Rochester Heights had always been a bad place. I know that now. I always knew that some of the people here were mean. But in the time I've had to think, I've seen how rude or nasty they were to each other. Maybe when people live together like that, with no reason other than living, bad things happen. I was sad once that to them. I was nothing but a sad shadow, only half seen. Once my landlord forgot that I lived there and sent Tony to get the place ready for someone new. Now, I'm not so sure I care as much. Being one of the ones they forgot might have saved my life. I was set for the bad things of the second floor hall, meeting the hands with no skin with an axe swing that almost cut one hand off. Moving back, I used the end of it to hit away another hand until I could get past them. Sarah Palmer was next, turning around in her scooter to look at me, but it was too late. The back of the axe went into stuff, soft as dough, and as I pulled the axe out, half her face came off. I heard her laugh as I ran past. Something was on fire in me. Even if I died here, I had to know the what and how of Rochester's fall into madness. Harold's room door was still open, and I made sure to lock the door when I ran in. Only then did I slowly turn around. I thought it was writing at first. I had read about it one night. A problem mostly for crazy people. The nonsense words written and said. The living room floor and next floor had many sharp shapes. They looked like magic in their shapes, but the letters themselves were not like any I knew. In the middle of the circle was no writing, but blood that was brown and red. I knew it was where Tony saw Harold's body. There was a book on the table, and looking through it, I saw that it was his. I didn't have much time in the room, and I couldn't really get what it said. And even though I still have it, and have spent hours reading it, I only know a little of what Harold was doing. Harold moved in with his mom after something that made him lose his job a year ago. They lived on her money from the government, and he hated her for being old. Every day she'd wake up with less of her mind. He also had problems with wanting sex, and started to think that Joanne's kindness meant that she liked him. The fight with her boyfriend Carter was the last thing. It wasn't why he did all this, but it was too much. But he had a reason to hate everyone here, and he wrote all his problems, big and small. I learned then the difference between being someone pushed away, but still watched with a look of fear like Harold, and being left alone like me. In his many pages of problems, he never said my name. He didn't know I was here, even though we were alike. It made me feel mad, and I don't know why. Then he wrote about what he called the background world. I still don't get what it was or why, but that's the thing that connects this all. I'll let Harold say it in his words. I first saw it in a dream. It started with a toothed worm biting the air. Like a finger, it pulled back what I thought was real to show me the things that worked behind what I could see. Two places in the same space, but never touching or talking as above. So below and from below to above, everything is the same. If it is here in our place, it is below in the background world. That was the first rule that told me the most important for making a place where we can meet. The second rule is that for an autarch to touch the human place, something must be given to it. A life, or part of one. Most times, the gift is someone else. The bigger the gift, the more an autarch can change it. The human place, as long as it's in its power. The strongest gifts are yourself, a year of your life, or the happiest thing you'll ever feel. The biggest gift one can give to an autocrat is your own life. There's more. He says that the autarch he talks to is one that works in the power of pain. Pain is its place, and Harold knew pain more than most. The best I can put together is that somehow he met this thing. Maybe it went after him for being weak, or maybe it made his thoughts wrong. Or maybe he learned too much for any mind to handle. I say this because I don't think that Harold was crazy, sick, and needing help, but there are enough things in the weird writing and his book that make me feel like he was finding out something real. He was not a madman, at least not until he let himself go deeper into what was around him. He spent the week before the night he died getting ready for Rochester's fall into the background world. 16 things were put around the building to show the place where the autarch would open the curtain and let our worlds join. I made from parts of his mom, the rest from animals around the building. The last one was Mrs. Laurent's dog, in the laundry. Even if they were taken away, they still made something in the background world that made this hell. Harold was sad that he never put one in the basement below, and that was my chance. Maybe only the building was partly in the place. And if I could get to the second basement and come out, it would be the outside I always knew. Or maybe I'd go right back into the background world. Anyway, I had to try. I looked around the apartment and saw that Harold drank a lot of cheap alcohol. I made 5 firebombs with what he had and started to go back down to the first floor. Going into the hall, I saw them. I saw them with a runner's start and an axe swing. The look of Carter's and Joanna's face got hit, and some of the stuff came off with a big piece, and I heard the teeth falling on the stone floor, but they didn't care. Carter tried to get me, arm out, but I threw myself at the wall and tried to get behind them. They turned around to look at me, but the strange way they were heavy made them slow, and I wasn't scared. Another axe swing went deep into weak stuff and bone, and cut through them easier than normal stuff. It was enough to almost cut their head off, and they made a bad, breathing sound. Another try to get me was met with an axe hit that made half its fingers go on the floor, and one last swing to their neck did it, but their head was on the floor. They didn't die. What was left of their face was moving its mouth, and I could see the broken part was starting to get better. This really was hell, made by a hateful heart. The body didn't fall, and wasn't still either, moving and shaking. It started to reach for its head. I had the firebomb ready by the time it got its neck and threw it when it picked it up. They went up in flames, and I thought I heard them scream. Maybe they felt something when it happened, and I hoped that the fire would be enough to end them. The second firebomb was thrown into the corner, where Sarah and the hands tried and failed again to get me. I wanted to burn this place down if I could. Maybe then I would be free from them. The third was thrown on the lobby desk. The last 2 were for the laundry. I didn't know if the building would burn, but I wanted to do some damage. To do something. The crazy run to the laundry was the fastest I ever ran. I'm sure of it. I thought that the noise and the fires would make the autarch and its people come out of the manager's office, but nothing stopped me from going down the stairs and to the laundry room. I landed on soft floors, and the lights were low and red like blood, but even then I saw the horror in front of me. A moving mass, a bunch of stuff made at the middle of the room, and it went out across the floors, walls, and machines. Every part was living stuff, and strings, nerves, blood things, all of it. A lot of arms moved and reached out at nothing weakly. and I swore that they had some things I knew. A watch that could have been Josie's from the 7th floor, a part of a bright green sweater from Kiana, a student. I didn't need more reason. The 4th firebomb was thrown on the stuffed floor behind me, and the last one right at the lump. The dark was gone by the burning thing that was in front of me. The door of the lower basement and my hope to get out was in front of me now, but I waited for a moment. The heat touched my back, and my eyes hurt from the smoke. If I was wrong, I was in trouble. But I was in trouble, fire or not. I went forward, and when my foot touched the first step, the world behind me went dark again as the fire went out. In a second, it all stopped. The heat, the smoke, a quiet fell, and a fear rose. I knew I shouldn't have looked back, but I couldn't help it. With a loud heart, I looked back and saw it, the attack of pain that made all of this. It made Harold want to hurt everyone he hated. The middle of its eye opened in front of me and got bigger to cover all in front of it in its look. Yes, it was a look that it showed me. Screams around me got louder as the lump got as big as the building, a living thing. And yet, it was still smaller than the attack who looked at it. The many things and their tools of pain went down to the thing of stuff and cut and hit and tore and ate it, and it all got better. It would keep going forever. That was the bad wish of Harold. The thing started to get bigger and break apart, a same copy of its round form, mitosis. This thing could break itself, and that's how it wanted to keep its promise and keep working without being stuck to it. I made a loud noise, or I think I did, because when I could look away from it to look around, I saw the way out, the stairs to the lower basement. I ran, not looking back. I couldn't look back. So, into the dark place I went. I had been in the lower basement once before, small and wet. It only had a few tables and chairs that you could fold. There were no ways in or out, except a small stairs and a door that no one used from a long time ago. It was blocked and locked always, but the door was old, wood, and I was sure it would only need a hard kick to break it. But what was in front of me was not the basement. No, it was some dark place that was not the background world. I had seen it for a short time outside my window, and this was different. Small and tight, but at the same time very big. There was no light here. Even when I tried my lighter, the air around me took away the light. I reached out to touch walls and found that I was in a tunnel with no other way. I walked and walked until time was gone and had no meaning. I know I must have only been there for hours. I was so hungry and tired that I had to rest, but I was not comfortable, so after a few minutes I got up and went on. When I finally saw a way out, with a little light, it hurt my eyes that had been in the dark for so long. The stairs that went down to the lower basement I always knew. The door was there, and with a crazy kick, it broke, and I got out to the world above with a half-happy noise and a half-crazy cry. It was day, and Rochester Heights was gone. I had come out of a lower basement into an empty green place. A man with no home near me looked at me for a moment before going back to what he was doing. Nothing is left of what I went through, and no one even remembers Rochester Heights. I looked for the people who lived there, and it's like they were never there. Everyone and everything there have stopped being real or have been changed in history. I found Macy's mom and called to ask about her kid, and she told me she never had kids. The company that has the place told me that it had been empty and for sale for half a year. I've not been the same since I got out of Rochester Heights. There's so much in this bad book, but every time I look at it, I feel a lot of fear. There's so many things I don't know. If what is below is the same as above and the other way, how has the world changed? Now as I talk, there's a thing of stuff that goes high above the world below, and it makes a long dark thing in the world above, and I shake to think at how it will show up. I feel like Rochester Heights has left a mark on me, made my heart darker in some way. The people there didn't have to go through what they did, and Harold should have had better. But they never looked at me, whether they hated me or liked me. I used to be mad about that, but now I'm glad. The bad dreams will always be there, and I will never be fine. But at least anything that looks at our world with hate will only see a shadow where I am. Hey everyone. So how did you like that story? This story is like some other stories I've done, and it has that thing that I don't know what to call. But stories where something happens and then you see two different worlds come together. The velocity of Corona was like that. But yeah, I hope you liked this story, and I hope you have a great holiday time. If you did, you can support me by liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories. See you in the next video.